of life? What is the level of freedom enjoyed by the people? What is the level of people's involvement, even in the development process? So all this put together constitute development. The reality is that for development to be participatory, you need to get information from the people on what their needs are. On the basis of these needs, you cannot plan development to suit the needs of the people. This is the essence of what the data collection is all about.
So, what would you say your assessment will be in the use of data in the planning process in Nigeria? Like, would you say that over the years, are there signs of improvements?
If you want us to talk at the federal level, one of the pitfalls of our development effort is the fact that apart from the first development plan from 1960 to mid-60 or so, and the second development plan that ended around mid-70s, all other development plans that Nigeria has engaged in the Abacha ahead of the Vision 2020, which has come and gone. The challenge is that at the federal level, sometimes a government initiates a project in terms of planning. When another government comes, instead of building on what the other government has done, they discard that idea and start a new vision. So if every government comes up with a vision without the requisite data to plan, the implication is that you're going to fail. Let me quickly give you a little insight into this. You hear the crisis about in the educational sector in terms of what is the quality of teachers in the primary school, the number of enrollment, the number of children out of school. We have all this because, one, for a long time we have not been able to do a national population census. Two, even the Sentinel surveys engaged by the National Population Commission is usually not a national project. It's what the government do in select states, and on the basis of that they use it to make estimates about the entire country. What you find is that you go to some schools, the place is overcrowded. You go to some schools, the number of pupils in that school does not commensurate with the teaching staff in those schools. The implication is that you are doing educational planning in a haphazard manner. So with reference to what you're saying, what the state government is trying to do now, the idea of getting data to enable them plan specific development for specific areas. If you look at if there's a problem with reference to health in Benin here, virtually everybody around this area will go to either the central hospital or they will go to UBTH if it's a tertiary health matter. Those who live in those central will take Otuwoka, and those who stay in Edo North will have to travel down to Otuwoka or down to Benin here. So the government needs information, raw data in terms of what is the number.
So this data that the government needs, is it going to be starting afresh, or is it going to be building on data that was there before, no matter how inadequate it was?
Well, the government already has an idea of what data is available, but that data is not sufficient for the government to plan. We are not talking about the past now, we are talking about the future development. So if you're talking about the future development, you must get information about the people who are living now to enable make estimation. In development studies, we use what we call sustainable development. Sustainable development is an idea that development should meet the needs of these current people who are living without jeopardizing the capacity of future generations to have their own development. Look at a child who is 3 years old. You should know that if you have a population of young people or pupils who are in school, the implication is that if 90% of them are to migrate to a secondary school, you will need facilities that will take care of that. So what the government is trying to do now is not just to provide development needs for this current generation, using that data to project for the future. The difference between us and developed countries lies in the fact that on the basis of the data you gather, constantly you upgrade the information you have. On the basis of this, you cannot talk about development planning in a better way. But where we rely on data gathered in 1990 or 1996 population census, where they will tell you the population of Oredo local government at that time was 340-something thousand. Unlike now, if you go by the national population growth projection of 2%, Oredo local government should be talking about up to 600,000 people. And the facilities you have there now, still the facilities there. It's not that the human beings in this local government have reduced. So for government to do adequate planning, you need to get what the actual data is. In all honesty, if the federal government has been up and doing with its survey, yearly survey, the state government would have been in a position to share data with the federal government. But every year, you hear there are no funds to engage on certain programs. On the basis of that, there is no adequate data, or there are no adequate data to cater for the information needs of government in terms of planning.
Okay, let's talk about the people that will be benefiting from this project right now. There are vulnerable groups, and like we mean people living with disability, people living with albinism, and then many other groups. How is this process useful in meeting their development needs?
What I will tell you is that most of the information you have about people with disability are basically what the association provides the government with. What of those living in the rural areas? Let's take the case of the blind. Apart from Benin here, where you have a school for the blind, there is no other school for the blind in the entire state. And that means that for a child who is blind in a place like Okwela, Ibilo, Ubiaja, and all those other places, their parents will have to bring the child down to Benin here. And you know what it means for such a child.
So you're saying is what the information the group presents to the government is what the government will work with?
No, that's not the point I'm making. You are asking of what relevance it is to them.
Yeah.
Over the years, I am saying that it is the data provided by people with disability that will rely on most of the time for planning. Government wants to go into communities. You know, for those living in the rural areas, they may not have access to what the associations are doing. The government wants to go into local communities and identify the vulnerable groups. If in a local government can find up to 30 people who are blind, there can be a basis for establishing a school of the blind for such people in such a local government. For those suffering albinism who are discriminated against, government can decide on a program of action to address that. For those who don't have a level of education to know that by being a member of the association they can act, what government is trying to do now is to get information about these people and address their needs without necessarily waiting for what the disabled association or people with special needs provide the government with.
Wow, very interesting, because it's very important that we get appropriate and correct information. Now, as with anything we do in life, we must prioritize. Are there areas of priority in this, data collection, or is every sector carried along equally in the same percentage?
Well, if you talk in terms of that, it is not a case of government addressing all issues at the same time. Earlier I mentioned something about felt needs, or the most felt needs. Yes, you can have issue about education, health. On the basis of the data that the people collecting this data will get from the feed, government will now process the data and use those data for planning purposes. Because there is an aspect of the questionnaire that will ask, what do you want, what immediately do you want the government to do for you? So on the basis of what is immediate, what is important, government will set priority in those areas. But it is not that the other data from other areas will not be relevant. It is based on the most felt needs of the people.
Okay.
The reason why government is collecting data, if the resources to address all needs are there, why not? But the point I'm making is that by collecting this data, government can set priority areas to address. Because if you place them in order of hierarchy, out of 100 people, 80 are telling you what we need more is school.
Okay.
Some are saying what we need is a healthcare center. The implication is that you focus on these two areas rather than talking about economic empowerment and others. It's not that those other areas are not important, but in terms of the aggregation of the views, a particular group, a particular need will be more important than the
more
other.
prevalent. Okay.
All right. Before we let our audience in, on Monday we had one of your representatives come into the studio to tell us that people who are called enumerators will be out there in the community to take questions from people residing in the community. Now, what type of questions will people be expecting from these enumerators that are field workers? What kind of questions?
The questions are many. I talk about needs. And if you talk about human needs are not the same. Some may be talking about water as a need. Some may be talking about education as a need. Some may be talking about healthcare facility as a need. Some will be looking at economic empowerment. Some will be looking at skills as a need. So on the basis of these basic needs of you of the people, questions will be asked. Where do you live? How long have you stayed in this community? What are your needs? So on the basis of what the person say, a subsequent question will follow. Why do you think this is your most felt need? These are the things the enumerator will be asking community members.
Right. I think we can even do a little bit of that on radio here, so that we even know what people even need at the moment. But Dr. Dan, I think it's time to get our audience in on the conversation. Talk to us this morning. Dr. Dan is here in the building. 0706-263-9275 or 0903-939-4427 or 0812-178-9154. If you cannot get across to us via the phone lines, the SMS line is 0807-400-9076. Okay, give us your name, your location, and your submission. Keep it short, keep it simple, and keep it civil. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Pastor Robert. I am calling from the area.
All right, go ahead, Pastor.
I give my beloved brother there. My dear foolish 16 are moving to 80 years. Nigerians are tired of all this paper talk. Now, take from 1999, Nigeria now cannot generate light. If it is light, what the first government are taking and light is over, water we cannot. Insecurity now are increasing. Who is interested in most of all these data? Look at the dosage for a case study. How many markets got on from years back? None of them, even EDPA there, has not been renovated. So one thing I want to beg those in authority, let them know the general overseer of the whole world is watching all that are happening within Nigeria and outside. So let them bring this is
okay. All right, Pastor, you've exhausted your time. You've exhausted your time. Like I said, keep it short, keep it simple, and keep it civil. Straight to the point. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Morning to you.
Yes, I just bumped into I'm calling from Echo anyway. I just bumped into the discussions. And I don't know if the data they are talking about what aspect.
Just keep listening to your radio, please. Keep listening to your radio, sir.
Because we don't normally have such an information. We don't know who and who is in charge of this area. That's all.
All right, keep listening to your radio. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning to you. What's your name?
I'm Jeff from Benin.
All right, Jeff from Benin. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, I had a discussion you people are talking about in this country. My brother, and this one I give our problem. This paper talk. If you go for street to street, they tell them what you need. How many they will see to do what they cry says they never do one.
Have you told them and they did not do? Okay. All right. Thank you. Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Charles Orlando.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, this pastor, the pastor of the whole world. You said you should make it sharp. Thank you very much. We are not tired. Let Nigeria put more effort. Let all learn how to appreciate. Because in radio we are okay. In love, Nigeria is okay.
All right.
Not only economy and security. That's the area we are lacking.
Economy and security. Please. All right, thank you. So, Doc, because we're almost out of time, you've sampled some opinions here, so just give us your closing remarks before we leave.
The frustration expressed by some persons tells a lot about the state of things. And like I said at the beginning of this program, government cannot address all our problems at the same time. It is about giving priority to what the felt needs of the people are. That is the essence of the data collection. For those who are feeling disappointed, the reality is that considering the little resources in the hands of government, government cannot solve all problems. So government wants to solve problems that are based on people's most important needs.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Dan Ikeria, Senior Lecturer, Department of Mass Communication, University of Benin. Thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you for having me.
That's how we end it. My name is Charles Oporum.
I am God's Love Orlando.
Good morning.
Our own problem now.